Welcome to the Jackson Rudolph Podcast. I am your host, Jackson Rudolph, and we are back. This is episode 76, and I could not be more excited to be streaming right now for you guys. If you've been keeping up with the podcast, you know that for the past 4 or 5 weeks, you guys have been watching reruns instead of getting new content. But now we are here for episode 76. We are back with new content. We're going to be bringing new episodes out, hopefully every week again, consistently. And I've got a pretty big announcement for my personal life coming up. If you stay tuned to my kind of private social media channels, or not private, but my personal social media channels, you're going to get an explanation for where I was for the last month and everything coming up real shortly. Hopefully, I'll be coming out with that announcement by the end of the week, as well as a Black Belt Magazine article about the American Internationals and especially the adult results from there. As Rashad Eugene won 3 overall grand championships, he's going to be featured hopefully on episode 77 of the podcast. So stay tuned for that. But for now, what we're going to do to kind of reintroduce everybody to the show, since we have been on a little bit of a hiatus, we are going to recap the U.S. Open, the biggest martial arts tournament or open martial arts tournament in the world. Went down back in July. I had a crazy evening competing in the synchronized division, competing in my solo division, and commentating. So it was a wild night for me. I still really haven't gotten a chance to go back and look at the stream that was brought to you by Black Belt Magazine, Jungo TV, and sportmartialarts.com, which is the stream that we are going to be watching right now. You can go and watch this stream on your own time as well if you head on over to the Black Belt Magazine YouTube channel. But for now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to pick through some of my favorite moments from the show, from when I was in the booth and commentating and actually having a chance to enjoy some of the competitors, as well as some things that I didn't get to watch. We're going to check out a big point fighting match between Bailey Murphy and Enrique Latona that I did not get to see because I was backstage trying to get ready for my division. I think Raymond Daniels and Mallory Woods were in the booth for that fight. So I'm excited to go. I've never watched that fight. I still have not gone back and watched the film there. I know that Bailey wins, but I don't know how that fight went. So we're going to watch that. We're going to watch the women's forms division, with the exception of my fiance, Gabrielle, to take out some conflict of interest there. But we are going to watch Sammy Smith and Haley Glass because all 3 of those ladies threw down in that division. But we're going to watch those 2 CMX forms against each other. Without further ado, let's go and dive right into it because we got an action-packed show, all types of great performances to watch. And it's always a good episode when we got film study going, right? So we're going to get things rolling here. Early in the show, I think this is, as you can see, only 10 minutes into the actual stream. And we have Dax Howland, one of the newest members of Team Competitive Edge. He is taking the stage. And the reason that I wanted to start off with Dax here is because of the level of difficulty of his routine. Now, before Dax gets started, I will say he was against 2 of my students in this division, Michael Molina, who is a fireball, as well as Zeke Gomez, who's a rising star on the NASKA circuit with his nunchucks. Both of them did an amazing job at U.S. Open. Michael had a stumble. Zeke had a drop in this division, and Dax was able to take home the win with a clean routine. But I just want to take a moment and respect the level of difficulty. We already saw a double. There's a triple spin box cutter release to kickstart Dax's form. The level of difficulty that this young man puts out is absolutely insane. We see a spin combination here going into 1, 2, 3 in the inverted catch. Notice that wasn't just a regular behind the back catch. He was actually flipping his hand upside down to catch that bow in a very awkward position, very difficult to do. One thing that I respect a lot about Dax is that since he's been competing on NASKA, he has taken a big step up in terms of his execution with his striking. He's keeping his hands in thirds position more consistently, striking with more power, striking with better targeting. Those are all things that were flaws of his several months ago. But leading up to U.S. Open especially, he corrected a lot of those flaws and is steadily improving in those departments. And that's a credit to his coaching staff. I know he trains with Peyton Fury, Reed Presley. They've done a great job helping Dax with those basics. Very difficult manipulation there. He does the 360 spin, lands the bow on the back of his hand, and rolls it down the arm into the body roll. In fact, we're going to try to get a quick replay of that if I can be precise with my button clicking here. But the level of difficulty of that is just insane. Not only to be able to control the bow on the back of a hand like that, but then to transfer that into a body roll, to be able to use that momentum. And speaking of body rolls and using that momentum, he did another one right there. But what I'm talking about is as he sets up his finishing combo here, comes to the back, double spin with the catch between the legs. That's incredibly difficult. Look at this, 360, back of the hand, down the arm, into the body roll. And then another release for the catch at the end. Has a little bit of a bobble there, but not quite as bad as the bobbles that the other competitors in this division had. So Dax Howland with an incredibly difficult routine. And aside from his routine, I mean, he's just a great kid, super respectful, very humble. It's always a pleasure to watch Dax perform, because you're not just watching a great martial artist, but you're watching a great young role model for a lot of other athletes as well. So hats off to you, Dax. I'm proud of you, buddy. That was awesome. Now we're going to fast forward here to 19 minutes in. And then I mentioned Michael Molina for that boys division. Now we're going to check out the new girls champion, Cody Molina, in the 13 and under weapons division. And as Cody does her walk in here, one of the things that was crazy about Cody's weekend, as she was, preparing to come up on stage, she did not know if she was going to do her kama routine or her bow routine until about an hour before the show started. And this is only 20 minutes into the show. So we're talking within 2 hours of her doing this form, she decided that she was going to do bow instead of kamas. And the versatility to be able to pick and choose between those is incredible. We see the double spin catch there to kickstart the routine. Now, I will brag on Cody a bit because she is one of my students. I train with her on about a weekly basis in a normal schedule. As we see her right into the manipulations there. From the striking, now going into the release, 540 behind the back catch. And then one thing I love about Cody is her stances and her basics in general. She does a really good job, as you see there, clean forward strike to the corner before the over the head side to side. She does a really good job maintaining good, clean martial arts basics in addition to all the tricks and manipulations that she's doing. She shows off the flexibility and the balance and control with the kicking skills there. That's something that's a little old school. You don't see stationary kicks like that a lot anymore. As she sets up her difficult closing pass here, 2 spins with a catch behind the back. We call that a 900 degrees of rotation, the 2 spins and the extra half for the behind the back catch. And then the characteristic intensity of Cody to finish things up there and claim her first ISKA US Open World Championship. And actually for Dax, that was his first as well. So 2 first-time ISKA US Open champions taking the stage and lighting it up there. So obviously a bow guy. Of course, I'm going to love the bow competitors. So seeing Dax and seeing Cody take those wins, that was really cool to watch and then commentate on from the booth. Now we're going to jump ahead and we're going to leave the weapons division. We're going to look at some forms competitors. And I'm going to fast forward here to 41 minutes into the show. And we are going to get a head-to-head showdown here of Maddie Kenaway and Caio da Silva, both students of Joey Castro, one of the top traditional forms contenders in the adult men's division. Both of them representing Team KTOC, just like their coach, Joey Castro. And Maddie Kenaway is kind of a brand new name to the sport karate circuit. She showed up at Battle of Atlanta US Open, winning overall grand championships, winning the CMX divisional runoff with a musical traditional form, which is incredibly difficult to do. I do feel like it's a disservice in this film study here that you guys can't hear the music that's playing, because the way that Maddie Kenaway choreographs this crane routine of hers to music is absolutely beautiful. I've heard Mike McCoy, one of the US Open promoters, say on multiple occasions how impressed he is by the poise and really the beauty of this form that Maddie Kenaway performs. And then I was actually talking to Joey Castro backstage at the night show, and he was telling me that he tried to get a lot of students to run this form before Maddie, and a lot of students were skeptical, thought that the form was maybe too much poise and not enough power, made several excuses for like why they shouldn't do the form. And then Joey was like, okay. And then he finally, Maddie was like, yeah, let's give this a try, and took it to a whole nother level, and it's proved very, very successful for her. When you're somebody that can't just win the traditional forms division and take that all the way to the overall grands, but you're even going into the CMX creative musical extreme and running a musical traditional form against all the routines that have the difficult tricking skills and all that. Don't get me wrong, traditional has its elements of difficulty as well. But anybody that travels the sport karate circuits knows it's hard to beat CMX routines with traditional consistently when they're put head to head. Depending on the judging panel and the crowd that you have, of course. But in general, what Maddie's doing right now is very difficult, both in terms of the degree of difficulty of that move with the balance technique there, but as well as just in general being able to win against a lot of these CMX competitors. Now, in this particular instance, she's up against another traditional competitor in Caio da Silva. So she gets a little bit more of a head-to-head traditional comparison here. And I'll go ahead and let the whole thing play so you guys get to see who wins as well. Looks like we had a little bit of a freeze in the stream there. That's something that'll have to be corrected in post. Beautiful cat stances by Maddie Kennaway. That's one of the things that defines this routine. There's a ton of cat stances throughout it. Maddie executes them beautifully. And bringing things to a close, maintaining the game phase. An absolutely beautiful performance from Maddie Kennaway. So Maddie, if you're tuning in, hats off to you. That was awesome. And then now, well, we got that performance that was poise, balance, beauty, grace. We're going to get a lot of those elements in Caio da Silva's routine, but what Caio is known for, in my opinion, is his power. So we're going to see Caio come out here, and in contrast to what Maddie was doing, where kind of the poise and the beauty was the primary feature, now Caio's primary feature is going to be the power and the grit of this performance. A lot like his coach, Joey Castro. They kind of are similar in that way. And so now Caio of Bethpage, New York, as you see the little description box down there from Matt Action. Went into my commentator voice for a second there instead of my podcast voice. But anyway, that is something I enjoy a lot. I enjoyed commentating the U.S. Open, commentated the Battle of Atlanta. So be on the lookout for me to be commentating more night shows in the future when those opportunities present themselves. We see Caio getting ready to begin his routine here. Excellent suspense in the early going. Now, I don't remember if Caio's routine was done to music or not. So this could be him just kind of waiting on some music choreography, or it could be him just drawing in suspense. And then you see right there with those first few snappy motions, I mean, the explosiveness of Caio is really incredible. Makes me very excited to see when he eventually moves up into the adult division to go against another powerhouse like Mason Stillwell, who has become, over these few tournaments that he's done as an adult competitor, defined by his power. It's going to be really interesting to see the two of those match up, just like they did a couple of years ago when they were always matching up in the junior runoffs, Caio representing the 14-15 age group, Mason representing the 16 to 17 age group. Once again, we see beautiful patience from Caio, pacing in between these moves, fast, explosive, snapping motions from one technique to the next. And then right back into those dramatic pauses and suspense, showing off the breathing techniques. Turning and pivoting that quickly into that low position is very difficult, especially when throwing that kick. To throw that and not budge an inch after extending the kick, that is incredibly difficult to do. And I think I've said something about pacing multiple times in this performance. I mean, that's one of the things that I find most impressive, other than his power, about Caio's routine is I feel like he is a master of pacing the routine, as of course we get interrupted by an ad, which appears to be for some type of computer game. So we're going to go ahead and skip past that real quick and get right back into Caio's routine. But as I was saying, Caio's a master of pacing. He paces his form very well. He's fast at the right times, slow at the right times. And for those of you that don't watch traditional forms often or have never competed in traditional forms, that is a difficult art to master, to be able to understand the right moment to explode and how long you should continue going fast, and also how long you should be paused or doing one of your slower movements. That timing is so delicate. And I feel like Caio has such good control of using that timing to maximize his performance. And I feel like that was the same here in this routine. We saw him do that very well. And then in the interest of time, I'm not going to let it play all the way through the scores, but I believe, I know that Maddie Kennaway won. I believe that it was on a 4-3 split, if I'm not mistaken. It was very close. These two competitors battled it out, but it was the beauty and grace of Maddie Kennaway that would get the win. I love seeing the sportsmanship there between the two of them, both teammates and training partners. Seeing them exchange that little high five and hug there was nice. And now we're going to fast forward. I mentioned Mason Stillwell and his battles with Caio da Silva. Mason, a friend of the show, he was on the show just a few episodes ago. We're going to fast forward here to 1 hour, 28 minutes. And we are going to check out Mason Stillwell's performance. And there he is. My button clicking is on point today. I thought that it might be a little bit difficult to kind of scrub through the long stream here and pinpoint exactly what I wanted to play, but it's working out well so far. Now, Mason Stillwell made his adult debut on the NASKA circuit at the Battle of Atlanta, where he not only won the Traditional Forms Overall Grand Championship, but he wound up taking that all the way to the, I forget exactly what the name of that championship was, but basically the Battle of Atlanta had all of the adult men's overall grand championship winners compete against one another to determine who would get some bonus prize money and be kind of the overall, I think it was ultimate champion is what they called it. And Mason did that, beating out the CMX forms competitors and the weapons competitors, both traditional and CMX. So very cool to see a traditionalist step up and beat all the best like that. Reminiscent of what Mason Stillwell's coach Jarrett Liker was able to do a few times in his career at the U.S. Open and at Warrior Cup, beating CMX competitors to be able to win those titles. That was back before the division was split. You know, back when and when Jarrett was in his prime, he was having to compete against the CMX competitors every time he was going up for an overall. So traditional competitors nowadays have a little bit of an advantage as far as their numbers and statistics go, that in the men's overall grand championship, they are competing against other traditionalists. They're not having to go against the CMX competitors. Now, one thing that makes that interesting, for lack of a better term, is that the women's divisions are still together. So someone like my fiance Gabrielle Dunn is still competing against the CMX competitors when she is a traditionalist in the women's overall grand championship. So there's a little bit of a disparity between the men's and the women's side of things there. But I'm sure that as sport karate moves out of this COVID era, there will be corrections made to issues like that and try to have some more equity between the divisions. But that's neither here nor there. What we're focused on right now is Mason Stillwell. I mentioned his coach, Jarrett Liker. Mason right here is running one of Jarrett's signature forms, Super Impe. This was a strategic decision by Mason. We talked about this when he was on the show. We talked about his selection of Super Impe in this particular situation. And he said that he felt it was his strongest form. And I agree. I mean, this is a form that kind of in the junior division became a trademark form of Mason's. And he executes it beautifully in this run. We see the power on those individual techniques there. Every single technique done at full force. Mason also does a lot of cross training. So he doesn't just get in the dojo and practice his katas and do martial arts based training. He does a lot of cross training with weightlifting and pretty much anything that you can imagine in the gym. Mason Stillwell's been doing, really developing his body and trying to become as strong of an athlete as possible, which of course is making him a better martial artist. We get to the closing stretch of the routine here. Mason showing off the intensity. Beautiful horse stance there. And then much like I talked about with Caio da Silva and his control of pacing, knowing when to go slow, knowing when to go fast, Mason is a master of that as well. We see him being very patient here with the breathing techniques, going to the back, just as he should be, kind of drawing in some suspense as he's about to turn to the front for the closing section of the form here. We're going to get a little bit of an athletic explosion with the jumping kick going into the back fist. Another beautiful horse stance, straight back to the back of the mat. Big intensity on the spear hand, and he'll turn to the front one final time, show off the stance, show off the leg strength. And that will do it for a beautiful U.S. Open winning performance by none other than Mason Stillwell. He is an extremely exciting competitor to see in the adult division now. Had a battle with Joey Castro in this case. It'll be very interesting when Ariel Torres, newly minted Olympic bronze medalist in karate, as it was a demonstration sport at the Tokyo Olympics, became the first karate medalist in the history of Team USA. So congratulations to Ariel Torres for that feat. It'll be very interesting to see when Ariel Torres comes back to the NASKA circuit, the battles that he will have with Mason Stillwell, as well as having Joey Castro in that mix. Those are going to make for some really exciting, especially Japanese kata divisions, even in the ring on the NASKA circuit. Forget on stage. They're going to be going against each other head to head in the Japanese Okinawan division, traditional challenge. And I can't wait to watch that. And so now we're going to move on. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to watch an entire division here at 1 hour and 56 seconds in. And in my opinion, this was the division of the evening. This division had one drop in it, but aside from one drop, everybody hit their forms. And that was 14 to 17 boys weapons. Now, at this point, I believe I had already done team sync weapons. And so I had already been on stage once. I came back to the booth to commentate this one division because I cared so deeply about making sure that I commentated this division because of how excited I was to watch this division. And here is Ben Jones. We see the 360 release catch going right into the striking combination. And I'm just going to come out and say it, as some people may have seen the results from the American Internationals. Ben Jones may be the most disrespected forms and weapons competitor in the history of sport karate. The talent level that this kid has, the difficulty, the creativity, the innovation of the techniques that he's throwing in this routine, many of which he created himself, it's another level. And I feel like with the performances that Ben has had, he should have some more career titles on his resume. He should have won a US Open by now. He should have Warrior Cups. He should have diamond rings. But he hasn't gotten the respect from the judges. Now, in this case, maybe it's because he was the first competitor. And we're going to rewind and watch this one more time, because I was talking about a lot of other things during that routine. So we're going to get a replay of Ben Jones. And maybe that's a hot take. If you guys can think of another forms and weapons competitor that's been more disrespected in sport karate history, go ahead and drop those down in the comments. And maybe disrespected is too strong of a word. I'll say underappreciated or underrated, I think is probably the most appropriate term. But yeah, my bottom line is Ben Jones, this kid, he deserves more respect. I mean, he's what's next. You know what I mean? He and so many others in this division. We're obviously going to watch a lot of his contemporaries who are also great martial artists. And I think that might be part of it, is that this is a very deep division with a lot of talent. But Ben is somebody that I think we should be looking for the judges to be scoring a little bit higher from this point forward. Because, I mean, the level of creativity and his execution, too. I mean, look at that. Fully extended forward strike, fully extended over the head strike. Had a little bit of a step back there, but nothing too major. And then the bend spin, the 720 spin to the finger roll, going down into the arm roll. That's a move that he invented himself, putting those techniques together in that sequence. And then we see the intensity there at the end of the routine. An absolutely incredible show from Ben Jones. So, Ben, I tip my cap to you. Fantastic form. Has the swagger there to roll the bow down the arm as he walks away from the judges. I loved that routine. And I'll just go ahead and say, when you guys go back and watch the stream and you look at how the scoring went and everything, I thought that Ben was maybe a little bit underscored in this division as well. Not to say that the other competitors didn't do really well. We're looking at the eventual champion, Mason Bumba, now, who also has an extremely difficult routine, and he would be scored very closely with Dawson Holt, who has a beautiful sword form. We're going to look at all of them. So when I say that someone's underrated, that does not take anything away from any of the other competitors. They're all excellent competitors, but Ben's someone that I feel has been underrated for a long time. Anyway, we see Mason Bumba taking off into this opening section. Speaking of innovation, I love that forward rotating flick release with the double spin catch, the hand roll during the gainer there. Now, we talk about difficulty. Mason Bumba does truly have one of the most difficult forms on the circuit. He lets go of the bow there as he executes the beach whisk and then catches that release. That is so hard to do. It's not even funny. The full D leg as he passes the bow between his legs. And then another thing that I really like is the variety of different movements that Mason does throughout this form, various manipulations going into the tricks, the very difficult double spin, blind catch at the end of the routine. Mason Bumba, the eventual champion of this division, absolutely deserved them. He went out there, he had a great form. He hit it cleanly, lots of variety with the tricking tricks, incorporating the work of the bow, as well as the just flat out difficulty on the bow tricks as well. So Mason Bumba, congratulations to you. That was an awesome form with a ton of difficulty in that as well. So yeah, I tip my cap to Mason Bumba as well. And that's what you guys are going to hear from me about this division. I mean, I'm just going to keep pouring respect for these guys. Because this group right here, with the addition of a few others like Esteban Tremblay, who hasn't been able to compete because of international travel restrictions from Canada with the COVID-19 pandemic. But this group of, I'm going to say it could be as many as 6 or 7 boys in this 14 to 17 division. They're going to be the next up in the men's division as we move from the era where, I had some great battles with, myself and Reed and Cole Presley and Tyler Weaver. And now at the US Open, I had Jake Presley up there with me and Alex Mancias and so many of these great battles that I've had. These boys are going to be the next generation up there in that men's division. And I can't wait because all of them are so talented and so skilled. As we now see Riley Tracy in his double bow form here, putting the bows together, doing a little bit of a single bow combination. And Riley was somebody that came out and surprised a lot of people. He was a little bit of a dark horse coming into the US Open, won himself a wild card spot by having some incredible performances in the eliminations and the runoffs. We see a beautiful release combination there going into the double spin. He unfortunately did suffer the drop there, but like a true competitor, picks it up, gets back up, and goes right back into the routine. I like that there, the ending move, kind of balancing one bow on the other and then popping it up, spin catch for the finish. Obviously, a little bit of disappointment there on the face of Riley Tracy, but he will be back. Very, very talented, very skilled, and some really unique double bow tricks throughout that routine, especially putting some of those releases together into combinations. That's not something that you see very often in double bow forms. A lot of times, double bow forms or any large double weapon, double swords included in that. You kind of just see one technique at a time as far as the tricks go. So to see Riley Tracy be able to link some of those together in combination, I really appreciate that. And now we move on to Philip Brume, someone who is another rising star. He has kind of announced his presence following some great performances in the regional Texas tournaments as well as Pro-Mac events. This is kind of his coming out party to the NASKA circuit, where he did this comma form at US Open on stage and rocked the house. I mean, you can tell he's got great stage presence when he just comes out into the arena. He came to deliver. So even though he was maybe a little bit of a dark horse candidate coming into this to contend for the title, he certainly did not disappoint with his performance. Representing Team Gypsy out of Texas. And we see the opening move here, touchdown raise to the double cork, beautiful landing to the knee. Double cork, probably the highest individual level of tricking technique that we saw in this division. Going right into the comma cuts, variety of finger rolls, little Cole Presley inspired forward rotating release there. Right back into the tricking. Well, beautiful pointed toes on the extension of those kicks. Then the D leg, very nice. Big intense transition, setting up his next cutting combination. 7 cuts, big release combination coming up here. Triple release of the commas there, one after another, almost like a juggling act. Very, very difficult to do, especially with those stage lights, such small weapons trying to make those catches. Double release into the Webster. Skipping front kick, pop front kick. And now he's going to do one more cutting combination, I think, as he sets up his closing comma tricks. Double releases, a series of double releases into the 360 zero gravity release from behind the back. Right into the tricking to approach the judges. Some more 7 cuts, closing move, both commas in the air, 360 spin catch. Very, very high level of difficulty there from Philip Brume. He brought the house down. And at this point, you've got 3 competitors that have a chance to win the division, right? With Ben's form, Mason's form, and Philip's form. Depending on what the judges were in the mood for that evening, you've got 3 forms that legitimately could take home the title. And then you've got somebody like Dawson Holt coming up, who Dawson Holt, I believe he won the overall grand championship at the Compete Nationals of 2020. So the last NASKA tournament that happened before the pandemic. Before that, at the AKA Warrior Cup of 2020, Dawson Holt was on stage for traditional weapons as well as CMX forms. So Dawson Holt, very much kind of a master of all trades, if you will. I won't even just call him a jack of all trades. But here he was with his sword form. Now, on this particular evening, he won ISKA World Championships in the traditional weapons category, in the CMX forms category, and in the team demo category, tying the all-time record with 3 U.S. Open titles in one night. There was a while where, due to some very, very tight scoring and a scoring error, that Dawson had actually been named the winner of the CMX title here as well. But then it was rightfully granted to Mason Bumba after the fact, which there was an instance there that really showed how much people should respect Dawson Holt. He had a very classy response to that all happening a couple of days after the U.S. Open, made a very gracious social media post congratulating Mason on the win. But as we look at Dawson's sword routine here, beautiful execution of the basic sword cuts. And that's something that gets lost a lot in CMX sword forms. You typically don't see someone with the extension and execution of the basic cutting in combination with the high difficulty releases, as we saw here with Dawson. I'm going to rewind just a little bit so that we can maybe see that last release combo one more time. Or maybe we can just watch the whole form again. That's cool too. But as I was saying, I mean, look at that. Every single cut, fully extended. He's hitting stances the whole time, right into releases, lands the Webster, standing back up, takes his time, right into another cutting combination. I mean, look at that angle when he was coming right at the camera there. Full extension on every single cut. I mean, it's just beautiful. Reminds me, and I've said this multiple times on the podcast, the way he cuts reminds me of Kalman Choka. And maybe that's an overreaction because Kalman Choka is the greatest sword competitor of all time by most people's opinion. Certainly in the men's division, in the women's division, you've got greats like Caitlin Deschelle and Audrey Donahue who can duke it out for that title. But Kalman Choka's single sword form was just beautiful. And Dawson has the best single sword cuts that I have seen since Kalman Choka. We see him controlling the sword on the back of the hands there, a little bit of a Lazy Jane variation, then popping the sword into the blind catch and then throwing it down one more time for the ending. A beautiful performance there by Team Competitive Edge's Dawson Holt. And this whole division, I know at various times I've given different people their flowers in this division. This whole division deserves all the respect in the world for an absolutely incredible performance that night at the U.S. Open. I salute every single one of you boys. You guys killed it. You have the Jackson Rudolph stamp of approval. Great work, and I cannot wait to watch all of you go against each other again. Great bow forms, a great comma form, a great sword form. We got a double bow form that when it's hit is going to be awesome. I can't say enough great things about that 14 to 17 boys division. So we're going to pause it there. Everybody give them a round of applause. You can see them all up on stage. Now we're going to shift off of the forms and weapons. And now we're going to get to the parts of the show that I have not seen yet. I have never watched some of the parts of the show that we are about to watch until right now, when Bailey Murphy and Enrique Latona will be taking the stage. These are two of the best fighters in the world right now. Enrique is someone that I thought has always fought Bailey very well. There are some fighters right now that are even, world caliber fighters that are getting beat pretty handily by Bailey just because of how hot Bailey Murphy is right now and how dominant he's been in the last few events that he competed at. But Enrique is someone that in his matchups with Bailey has done a good job of holding his own. In recent memory, the last few times they've matched up, I don't know that Enrique has gotten any wins there. I think that Bailey has kind of owned the series recently. However, Enrique does fight Bailey well. Granted, I don't know exactly how this fight winds up turning out because this is my first time watching the full fight. So we'll see how Bailey handles this. I do know that Bailey winds up winning because I saw Bailey come backstage with the trophy, and then of course in the follow-up coverage and everything, it was announced that Bailey had won. And as he became the champion defended his title as champion of the Black Belt Magazine lightweight rankings. He claimed the title as champion of the Black Belt Magazine open weight rankings. So he is a two-division champion right now on those Black Belt rankings, where the primary determining factor is the ISKA World Champion. But enough of that. Now let's take a look at this fight. Bailey Murphy in the black representing Team Straight Up. Enrique Latona in the red representing Team Top 10 USA. The champion ranked team fighting team by the Black Belt Magazine rankings right now for their win at the US Open. I believe they also won team fighting recently at the American Internationals as Bailey takes off on the blitz using that speed, timing, and reach. One thing that people often forget about Bailey because he's a lightweight, his reach is incredible. We see heavyweights all the time that have a ton of reach because they're bigger people, oftentimes really long legs. You can think of a lot of heavyweight fighters in the past that have had a great reach advantage. But Bailey is lightweight and he is long. The reach advantage that he has is insane. Especially like watch when he's throwing some of these back fists on the blitz when he's trying to initiate contact. The reach that he gets with that front hand is crazy. As Enrique's been able to make a little bit of a comeback there, tying the score at 2-2. Notice the flag on the screen. Enrique does fight out of Guatemala. Guatemala's got a lot of great sport martial arts competitors over the years. Bailey scores and goes back ahead with that one. Quick body punch from Bailey. Beautifully timed there, up 4-2. Bailey does the little fake step in. Enrique raises the leg. As soon as the leg comes up, Bailey's right in there with the jam on the punch, up 4-2. Beautiful defense there from Bailey, kind of letting Enrique kick the guard and then firing back with the counter strike. However, Enrique gets the point there. Another one going in Bailey's direction. He's clinging to that 2-point lead. But again, Enrique is holding his own. Enrique's done a really good job of keeping the score close, scoring at the right opportunities, taking advantage of those little tiny mistakes that Bailey might make so that Enrique can find those opportunities to score. And one thing that I love about these fighters is how young they are. We're going to get to see these matchups for several years to come. Both of them very young fighters, and that's always super exciting, right? I remember, watching, even though they're both still active fighters in the full contact world, Raymond Daniels and Ross Levine. I remember watching them fight at the Amerikick Internationals years ago, and it's one of those things that you really cherish, seeing some of those later point fighting matchups between Raymond and Ross, because you knew you weren't going to get too many more of them. They're both still active fighters now. Ross is about to have a karate combat fight, which is really exciting. Ray is currently a free agent. It's still unknown where he's going to sign for his next MMA contract, whether it be UFC or One Championship or Bellator, maybe even karate combat for Ray. There's a lot of opportunities on the table there. But with these guys, we know that we're going to get to see this rivalry develop, and we're going to see many more matchups between the two of them. And that's something that is so exciting. As we dive into round 2 here, Bailey's got that 3-point advantage. We see Enrique doing what he does best, working that kick, leading off, sometimes leading off with that side kick, uses that to try to open up a lot of scoring opportunities for himself, that offensive lead leg side kick. It's one of his best weapons. Little fake there from Bailey. He knows that he doesn't have to push because he's got the lead. Enrique takes off there. It was hard to see if Enrique's punch landed from this angle. Looks like Bailey might have scored with a back fist over the top there. Bailey, quick takeoff right to the body, going up 8-3. And now this is where you can really start to feel the momentum kind of swing in Bailey's favor, a 5-point lead in the second round. But Enrique does a great job taking an opportunity to score there and stop the bleeding. Now, all of a sudden, he's 2 head kicks away, right? 2 head kicks, and he's got a tied match. Enrique takes off, scores there. Now it's just 3 points. So that is how you eliminate a deficit in sport karate, right? You never get discouraged, even if it's a 5-point deficit in the second round. You continue to fight. You continue to work your fakes, take your opportunities to score. Next thing you know, you've got a 3-4 point game, and that feels a lot more manageable than when you've got a 5 or 6 point deficit. Any point fighters that fight regularly, you can chime in with how you feel about, how those scoring differentials kind of play out in the second round of a fight, depending on how much time is left. Obviously, I'm a fan. I don't actively participate in point fighting, so I'm speculating a little bit. So I'd love to see some discussion about that from other point fighters down in the comment section. And now, as we approach about 30 seconds left, I have a feeling we're about to see Bailey start to use a lot of movement to kind of keep Enrique away and make sure that Enrique is not getting any scoring opportunities. Definitely no 2-point opportunities that could close this gap really quickly. You see Enrique trying to go for, it looked like he was going for like a skip up side kick there, but Bailey takes advantage. He saw that telegraph footwork. And now Bailey trying to show off a little bit, as he knows a 5-point lead with under 10 seconds remaining. He knows he's got this locked up, so he tries the jump spinning kick, some fancy evasive techniques. and then that'll be the match. So again, even though we have a 5-point win for Bailey Murphy, Enrique Latona was impressive there. He held his own. He kept the score close for a lot of the match there in the second half. He was only at a 3-point deficit at one point, which is not easily, but it is overcomable, right? So I feel like there is many more chapters to be written in this rivalry. As we see the congratulatory handshake from Coach Joe Greenhall, we know he's proud of that superstar, Bailey Murphy, pretty much unquestionably the hottest point fighter in the world right now. So congratulations to Bailey, a friend of the show. We've had him on the show a couple of times, so it's great to see Bailey being successful. And then Enrique, congratulations to you as well, making it all the way to that level. I know that you won the lightweight grand championship at the American Internationals as well, so congratulations to Enrique for that. And I know that we'll be seeing more from Enrique very soon. And now, as we approach the close of the show here, we're going to fast forward and have a look at one more division, which is going to be the women's division. Now, you can see the thumbnail down there. I am going to skip my fiance, Gabrielle Dunn, for bias reasons. Now, she did make the stage for her traditional form. That's what she's kind of become known for, is her traditional routine. Making it to the stage for that traditional routine earned her the traditional world championship, or the traditional champion ranking by the Black Belt Magazine rankings for the women's division. So congratulations, babe. Proud of you. However, we're going to avoid bias on the podcast here, and we are going to watch Haley Glass and Sammy Smith battle it out. And in my opinion, or not, I guess it's not really an opinion, if you just kind of look at how Team Paul Mitchell has operated over the last several years, Paul Mitchell really kind of going all the way back to the Casey Marks and Lauren Carney era. And even some eras before that, there were great women's champions like Ming Lu and Christine Bannon. But I digress. Paul Mitchell has always done a good job of having kind of these two women to go at it in the women's division. Casey and Lauren did it for several years. Later on, it would be Caitlin Deschelle and Audrey Donahue battling it out for U.S. Open titles. After that, we saw Sammy Smith and Mackenzie Emery duke it out for several years. And then now, as Mackenzie Emery has gone on to pursue the stunt world, we see Haley Glass stepping up. And now it seems that Haley Glass in the CMX divisions is going to be that kind of next great rival, friendly rival, because they are teammates for Sammy Smith. And as you guys noticed on the graphic here and on her uniform, you'll see that at the U.S. Open, Haley Glass was representing Team Infinity, but then got called up to represent Team Paul Mitchell shortly after, in large part because of this win. Team Paul Mitchell had been scouting Haley for a while at this point because she had a very successful junior career, but winning double ISKA titles in the weapons and forms divisions in the women's division at U.S. Open definitely put her over the top for our executive committee, and ultimately resulted in Haley being added to Team Paul Mitchell. As she goes into her tricking combination here, one thing that really impressed me about Haley in the post-pandemic era is how much stronger she has gotten. The power behind her techniques and the speed with which she executes these techniques is at a whole different level than what we saw from her when she was in the junior divisions. She has completely changed her training routine. She's doing more cross-training, making her body stronger, and it's really paying dividends. And we're back. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty there, but we are right back into it as Haley Glass is finishing up this routine. But yes, Haley Glass has stepped up her game in terms of her training, gotten extremely strong, and it has primed her for success up here in the adult division. We see the traditional martial arts technique with the double knife hand block, powerful hand combinations going into the big, strong finish. Haley Glass, a dominant junior champion that has now made a successful transition to the adult division as she goes on to face one of the great champions in the history of the women's CMX divisions, Sammy Smith. And so watching these two battle it out is going to be really, really special. As we know, Sammy Smith is reaching the later stages of her career. Who knows how much longer she will be out there and active. She said on the Inside Scoop with Alex and Jeff not too long ago that if she could get that Warrior Cup, I believe she said 2 more diamond rings and a Warrior Cup, then she could retire happy. So the days might be numbered for Sammy Smith. Haley Glass, a brand new competitor in the adult division, a rookie, if you will. So it's almost like an amazing changing of the guard to see these two going at it right now and kind of helping with that generational shift. So we see the ever intense Sammy Smith. Like I said, a great champion of this division. You talk about some of the great CMX competitors in the women's division of all time. Caitlin Deschelle, Mackenzie Emery, Sammy is right up there in that tier. And then one thing that I love about Sammy is the creativity. We see her kind of fake the flying sidekick there, go into the dive roll, and then finishing off the tricking combo from there. Full speed on the hand combinations. And that's where you really see the level that Sammy is at. As you look at the speed and the extension of her hand techniques, that's on another level, right into the tricking with the cartwheel full. And then exploding into this closing combination, jump front kick, axe kick, ducking underneath. And then last closing hand combinations into the big finish by the ever intense Sammy Smith. So watching that battle between those two girls in that CMX division, that is going to be really exciting to watch while we have it, while we can still appreciate the great career of Sammy Smith and watch her put her talents on display. That's something that we should all respect and appreciate. Anytime that, we recognize that a competitor is kind of getting to a point in their life where they might move on to different interests and kind of step away from the competitive sport karate arena. I think it's always important to make sure that we've got a ton of respect for those competitors and really enjoying those performances while we still have them. I remember, if I could go back and look up to some of my role models when I was a kid, I would give anything to watch Kalman Choka run another double sword form, or watch Matt Emig do another nunchuck form, or watch Casey Marks do another bow form, or get to watch Mike Bernardo in person, right? Like, those are things that it's like, if I could make that happen, I would pay money to make that happen, right? So let's appreciate some of these champions of this generation that may be moving on soon. Let's appreciate them while they're there. And then let's also appreciate, a big theme of this podcast today was a lot of these young competitors coming up, whether it was Dax Howland and Cody Molina winning their titles in those junior divisions or youth divisions, really 13 and under. And they've got, years and years that they can develop and then ultimately move into the adult division. Or whether it's that very next generation, Haley Glass moving up right now, Mason Stillwell, brand new in the adult division, Caio Da Silva moving up very soon. That entire 14 to 17 weapons division, Ben Jones, Mason Bumba, Dawson Holt, Philip Brume, Esteban Tremblay, Riley Tracy, and there's more and more that I could name. Watching them move up into the adult division is going to be really special, and I think that's something that we should all appreciate. And that will do it for this film study here in episode 76 of the Jackson Rudolph Podcast. Like I said, we are back. We're back with consistent episodes again. Stay tuned. Next week, we still got to get it recorded, but Rashad Eugene, the Black Mamba himself, one of the most dynamic characters in the sport karate world. He's going to be making an appearance on the show very soon, hopefully next week, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for all the support. If you enjoyed this film study episode of the Jackson Rudolph Podcast, leave a like, drop some comments down below. What was your favorite performance that you saw, forms, weapons, or fighting tonight? And make sure that you share. If you enjoy this, hit that share button. That's the number one thing that you can do to support the podcast. Thank you to everybody tuning in. Thank you to Black Belt Magazine for this opportunity to share sport karate with the entire martial arts world. I'm Jackson Rudolph. This has been episode 76. And I'll see you next time.